Welcome to the premiere episode of the CHAMWADA Report, a weekly current affairs show about you and with you. An issue-oriented show with content that is aimed at transforming lives. And in this episode, the significance of President Barack Obama's visit to Kenya. He is expected in Nairobi later this month. What does that visit mean to you? What is the perspective of the Kenya Private Sector Alliance?
This will give a thumbs up for Kenya.
What does the U.S. ambassador to Kenya say?
It's going to be an extraordinary moment.
Plus, what it means to host President Obama according to Tanzania's President Jakaya Kikwete. Remember, he hosted Obama 2 years ago.
The security arrangements,
But first, a look at the fact sheet, how the U.S. presidents have visited Africa in the past.
The first state visit by the President of the United States of America to Sub-Saharan Africa was by Jimmy Carter to Nigeria and Monrovia, Liberia between 31st March 1978 and 3rd April 1978. George H.W. Bush visited Somalia from 31st December 1992 to 2nd January 1993. The U.S. president who made the largest number of state visits in Sub-Saharan Africa was Bill Clinton. His first trip to Sub-Saharan Africa was in March 1998 during the 11-day Six Nations tour. First in Accra, Ghana in March 1998, then Uganda, where he met regional leaders from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, DRC, and Ethiopia. Clinton's next destination on the same day was Kigali, Rwanda, where he met with then-President Pastor Bizimungu and delivered a public address. Between 25th and 29th March 1998, Clinton was in South Africa where he met Nelson Mandela and addressed a session of parliament. His next stop was Botswana, where his host was Kate Masire. While in Botswana, Clinton visited Chobe National Park. His final destination on his tour of Sub-Saharan Africa was Senegal. Clinton made a second tour, this time round only to 2 African nations, Nigeria and Tanzania. Clinton's successor, George W. Bush, made a 5-nation tour of Sub-Saharan Africa in July 2003. First to Senegal, with his host being then-President Abdoulaye Wade. Next was Pretoria, South Africa, where he met with then-President Thabo Mbeki, followed by Botswana, Uganda, and Nigeria. On his second tour of Sub-Saharan Africa, George W. Bush visited Benin on 16 February 2008. He then flew to Dar es Salaam, where he met with President Jakaya Kikwete to sign a Millennium Challenge Agreement. From Tanzania, he flew to Ghana to meet with President John Kufuor, then Liberia, where his host was President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. And Barack Obama's first visit to Sub-Saharan Africa as a president of the United States of America was on 10th July 2009 to Ghana, where his host was the late John Atta Mills. In 2013, Obama made yet another tour to the continent, beginning with Senegal. Then South Africa, where he visited Robben Island, where South Africa's first black president, the late Nelson Mandela, was imprisoned during the apartheid regime. He wound up his visit in Tanzania, where he led trade and investment discussions and launched Power Project. Only 6 out of the 44 presidents of the US have made state visits to Sub-Saharan Africa.
Remember, this show is about you and with you. And we ask, when President Obama comes to Kenya, and maybe you happen to meet him, what is the most important question you would ask him?
Alikuwa nasubiri nini ndo akuje saa hii? Nini ameona, nini cha muhimu ameona ndo atuletee wakati huu ambacho hakuwa analeta the other years that he was when he was in leadership.
Ongea mambo ya security za India. Kama ni kwa equipment, kwa training.
Sasa yeye ni kukuja kama Mkenya, si ati uchumi itamarika nini, hapana. Si tuko na rais wetu. na nisiwezi enda kumwona kwa sababu mimi niko na kazi, hata niko na customer wenye wanahitaji siku hiyo.
Atasaidia rais wetu na maarifa ya mambo ya kutengeneza security hapa Kenya.
Atufungulie manjia za kupata mavisa na green cards ili tupate kwenda huko ng'ambo. Huko huwezi linganisha dola na pesa ya Kenya. At least kwaso itakuwa rahisi kidogo na maisha itakuwa rahisi kidogo. Wengine hatujaoa.
The thing I can ask Obama is what he thinks about security in Kenya and his contribution. What can he contribute towards security?
Kogelo, it is good for the Kogelo's people because if there are businesses there, it will improve. Investors will be there.
I have nothing to gain. The common man has nothing to gain. America has its interest. Kenya has its interest. President Uhuru should take care of our interest, not America's interest.
No. In fact, it may create an economic growth. I could have absolutely requested to improve the security affairs of the country, and then we know that the country is impacting with a lot of problems of insecurity problems.
Is he also interested in tracing the routes so that he can come over to Turkana in Ariokotome so that he can trace where life began from, particularly for all the human beings?
It's big. It's big. The security arrangements.
Talk of experience and President Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete's remarks on a light note give a feel of what it means to host the President of the United States of America. State House was extraordinarily busy with the advance team checking every detail of meeting rooms with a tooth comb. Streets meticulously branded, as such a visit is a rare moment to market a country. However, it can be so joyous, yet so inconveniencing. On the day of President Obama's arrival in Dar es Salaam, the skies were busy too. This for maximum surveillance, for maximum security. Several heavily armored vehicles in the city offered spectacular viewing for locals, but the presidential limousine, which the Secret Service refers to as the Beast, would attract the biggest attention. It has a seat capacity of 7 occupants, including the president. On this particular highway, some hawkers with piles of egg trays on their bicycles were not too far from the limousine. They were the first to ride on a road just used by the most powerful leader in the world. This was the third time Tanzania was hosting a sitting US president. For President Kikwete, this was the second time he was going through this experience. Alongside the president's visit were trade and investment meetings in Dar es Salaam. President Obama was on the third leg of his tour of the continent after visiting Senegal and South Africa. President Obama and his host addressed a joint press conference.
The lives of the people of Tanzania are different today, thanks in many ways to the support we've been getting from the United States of America.
President Kikwete was the first African leader I welcomed to the White House after I took office.
Like what happened in Dar es Salaam, Kenyan motorists, cyclists, and even pedestrians, especially those in host city of Nairobi, may have to redraw their movements or take to stay at home for the entire period the US president will be on the Kenyan soil.
It is common practice for Africans to go the extra mile when hosting visitors, especially those who have traveled from countries afar. I therefore urge you to exercise the spirit of hospitality and bear with a few inconveniences that you may encounter during that weekend of the 24th to 26th of July.
As compared to Tanzania, when it comes to securing the very, very important person in Kenya, analysts expect security to be much tighter because of the unfortunate bad history of terror attacks in the country. It will be the biggest test for Kenya's security chiefs. On a positive note, Kenya will be on the global map. International media will camp in Nairobi, and the presence of the international guests could be milked as an opportunity to showcase Kenya as a hub worth investing in. It will be a homecoming of sorts, as Obama's father was born in Kogelo, Siaya County, and this will be the first time he will be visiting Kenya as President of the US. The last time he was in Kenya was in 2006 when he was a senator, well ahead of the successful launch of his presidential bid. All in all, the joy and stress of hosting the world's most powerful leader, the US president, can be summarized this way on a light note.
You always enjoy anapokuja, unasema lakini akifika it's big. It's big. Ile shughuli sio yani the security arrangements.
That brings us to the end of part 1 of this show. When we return, a tale of 2 ambassadors.
You will have an opportunity to meet with the entrepreneurs at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit.
The relationship between Kenya and the US goes a long way.
Plus the perspective of the private sector. Don't go away.